The Nick and Matt Show.
Okay, so now that we've got 5-time world champ into our show and out of our show via text message, let's move on to topic here. CBS Sports Network and disc golf. That's what we're titling this here. Can I just go through what we know, and then Jeff, I'm going to let you correct anything that we've said that wasn't accurate from your perspective, and then let's talk about it. So what we know. This was announced June 25th. This was the day before the DDO, so the Dynamic Disc Open, by Dynamic, by Jomez, by CCDG, by the Disc Golf Pro Tour. This was June 25th, the evening before the tournament started, actually 10 minutes before our show launched. We didn't catch it, and we were talking about rumors on our show about something happening, and then people were confirming that it was happening. And then I'm going to put it this way, surprise, this is for everybody. There will be no next day production. This was the day before because a deal has been worked out by Jeremy Rusko, specifically starting that conversation with CBS Sports Network to air 4 one-hour segments, including all 3 rounds of tournament play and 1 segment of almost an $11,000 skins match.
Wow.
That's incredible.
That's insane.
Do we have any info on that? I'll continue on here. Do we have any info? Is that the highest stakes skins match ever in disc golf? Does anybody know? Jeff, do you know?
I don't know.
I'd have to say, yeah.
I feel like I can't think of anything that would be more than that. That was $1,200 a hole over 9 holes.
Yeah, I think they did 5,000 last year at Green Mountain.
Yeah, that was pretty high stakes. I thought that was maybe highest. So if that was the case,
probably was too.
Yeah. So that was funded by disc manufacturers. And I'm not asking you guys to go listen to every other podcast. I try to stay in the know with everything that's going on. And it seems to me that a lot of disc manufacturers came in to support this. And it seems to me also like if they did that, they would have a player on their team maybe as part of that. That's my understanding. They did a doubles. It was a doubles round. So a male with a female player playing out a hole. So this was also what we know. There would be live production available for subscribers of DGN, which is Disc Golf Network, and final round free for everybody on YouTube. However, it was later found out that the live production would only be available for 24 hours following the stream. The CBS segments will air in the middle of August sometime. That's what I understand. It sounds to me like Jomez is the producer of this. They have about 3 weeks to get this to CBS Sports Network, and then because CBS Sports Network requires a 3-week heads up, hey, here it is. We need 3 weeks before it airs. So I kind of did my math a little bit, if you will, and I figured out it's probably sometime in the middle of August. So here's what else we know. CBS Sports Network costs money to watch. You either have to have the cable TV subscription, you have to either have YouTube TV or Hulu Live TV. So interesting. So that's everything we know. What did we miss? What did we get wrong from your perspective, Jeff? Anything there, or does that all sound correct?
Yeah, I mean, we released the press release that has literally all the information. It's pretty transparent, to be honest. And I think all that generally lines up with the press release. I mean, we expect the show to air in late July or early August. Nice. And then there is a period of exclusivity after that, which is where we're projecting the post-production to be late August, early September. But, as soon as we have the final air dates and the schedule for that broadcast window is set, we'll communicate that as well. So, yeah, generally, that everything you said, I think was correct.
Yeah. Cool. I tried to do
Matt does his research very well. I just kind of hear all the compliments or complaints from the people when I'm out on the disc golf course. So one of the questions that I did get asked, and I didn't know this just in general, the live coverage was only on the Disc Golf Network page for, what did you say, 24 hours after?
Yes.
The event?
Is that accurate too? It was up for 24 hours, right?
Yeah, that's right. We allowed it to render and post to allow paying subscribers and people that bought the pay-per-view a chance to see it, especially people in Europe. So they had a little bit more time there. But generally, post-production was restricted. We did push to make sure that the women's post-production was available next day. And, again, I know that there's probably questions. And I honestly think most of those questions stem from people speculating online that didn't read the press release, because literally all the questions just can be answered by reading the press release that went out. But, in this day and age, I don't think we can expect people to, actually read,
expecting everyone
press
to
releases,
read.
or, like we
Yeah.
put a statement out. The same statement was put out by Jomez. The same statement was put out
Yep.
by DD. And I think like when that social media train gets, rolling out of the station, maybe then people start, hey, I think this, I think that, and then conjecture and speculation take off. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty straightforward, and I'm happy to, give a little bit of, my perspective on it. But yeah, I mean, the footage on Disc Golf Network was there through the end of 24 hours, post the final round.
What was the craziest, and we're not tying names to this, so we're not calling anybody out unless they feel targeted themselves. What was the craziest speculation or incorrect thought on this that you've heard? Anything stand out to you? Like, wow, no, that's not what's happening.
I don't know. I honestly, don't delve too far into the speculation. We try to. I know that our team that is try to be aware and answer questions. So you do see some things, but I think that the biggest thing that stood out to me was that people were saying, that there was no way to watch it. And obviously you could buy pay-per-view, which is only, a few dollars for a round. I think it was $5 for both of the paywalled rounds. So that's $250 a round. But then the final day was free. And like, that's something that we've communicated all year. Yeah. And every single final round of every single Elite Series tournament is free, streamed live on YouTube. Mm-hmm. And that's because, looking at the numbers, the early rounds in the past haven't been viewed. The women's rounds haven't been viewed. We're talking about 1,500 people, 2,000 people. And then even in the early, Friday coverage and sometimes Saturday coverage, it escalates, but we're talking 3,000, 4,000 people. So, those rounds really need to be supported by people that want to watch them. And all the people that want to watch them have done so. We've had great numbers for DGN. But then the big round where we have, traditionally anywhere between 6,000 and like now 12, 13,000 viewers, that's free on YouTube. And that's the one that most people want to see. And we didn't want to take that away from folks. And we also wanted to bring them in slowly to the Disc Golf Network subscription. So I would say the craziest thing, craziest, but also the one that I wanted to correct the most was saying that you couldn't get the coverage. No one can see anything until September. That's pretty wild, because
false allegations that came about.
Yeah.
So we're seeing the chat board is going wild, which I love, but we're here. I wrote down some of the things that I observed because when we broke the news ourselves on our show live, as we were reading, we actually read the statement.
Yeah.
We broke some of this news, and so we had people commenting all week on our show, and it seems to me like some of them felt like the ends didn't justify the means, and I was trying to understand why that was the case. And here I am. I'm usually the hot take, like just drive it home, and if people are offended, they're offended. But I was trying to understand what was the core issue, because disc golfers are very generous people when they aren't forced to pay for something. So like, for instance, if you had like a donation wall instead of a paywall, you'd probably get more money because people would be like, just, super chat for the Disc Golf Pro Tour. Yeah. Like, they're very generous people. But as soon as you say like surprise, like you have to pay for something, there's people who bucket the system. And so I think some people felt slighted. And here was the interesting thing. And I think there was a point to be had here. And I'd love your opinion on this, Jeff. How involved were you with the timing of the announcement in relation to the event? And I'm sure you were tied into like, hey, let's all do this at the same time. But like, how did it work out that it was like, and you obviously have no say for Jomez, and like, you're not speaking for them, but Jomez was talking on their Showmez, I don't know, it was a week or two before, saying like, hey guys, we're really excited. We're coming back. We're starting back up. DDO, let's go. We're going to be there. Really and they did tease out like really exciting big things coming. And I think people were pumped for the return of disc golf, watching their next day production. And then it was like this announcement, you're not getting it. And that's not to say people like Nick and I, who enjoy and actually prefer to watch live. I do like Jomez and CCDG, but I prefer to watch sports live. I didn't feel slighted because I'm like, hey, I'm already on Disc Golf Network. That's what I like to watch. But if my preference and what I was planning on the night before the event got kind of blanket pulled out, I might have had some of those initial reactions myself, and I feel like that might be part of it, their response. So what was your connection to the announcement date? I know Rusco had a big part in setting this all up, but like, was it just it literally had to be that way because the deal didn't come together until then?
Well, yeah, I'll address a couple things in there.
Yeah.
Number one, we're like 100% like positive that there is some criticism out there, but it's a very small minority of folks. Like we've seen the metrics and all the folks that are excited, all the messages of support that we're getting just in general for returning for the year, let alone this coverage of the DDO. So, we understand the frustration specifically surrounding the timing. But a couple things I just want to say is, number one, we never released a media plan. We said we're going to try to get our media plan out as quickly as we can for the DDO. So we never promised next day. Jomez never promised next day. I know they were teasing like big things. They were teasing this CBS announcement. Yeah. And, we, unfortunately, planned on doing it earlier, and I'll get into why we didn't. But the other thing is that we're all a team on this. Jomez, DD, the DGPT, we worked together to make this all happen. And certainly DD got the ball rolling. They funded the broadcast. They really made sure that this happened. But, I just wanted to, kind of put those pieces into place for folks. That this is a new event. The event wasn't even on the schedule 5 weeks before it happened. We as the Pro Tour have worked extremely hard to develop a comprehensive policy to allow us to return, worked really hard to get the event up and running and add $14,500 to it for the pros and to create any content at all. So, I think the unfortunate thing was the timing of the release. So let me talk a little bit more in depth about that. Basically, this had been going on. First of all, the events was announced 5 weeks before, right? So you can imagine that any deal that we had in place with CBS Sports didn't start happening until 4 weeks before. In fact, it was a little bit after that. So we're talking about a very short window of time from even like contacting and talking about this opportunity in the first place. So from there, really, we were approached by DD. So was Jomez. We all talked as a group. And then, I think it was 2 weeks before that it was decided that we would move forward in this fashion. And, really, as the holder of the media rights of the event, the tour said, hey, we know that DD is psyched to do this. Jomez is on board to do this. So why don't we get on board, support, and allow this to happen? And also, put all our resources together. So a big shout out to Ian Anderson of Central Coast, because, we have contracts with Jomez and Central Coast. And, we decided to, as replacement events, do our best to honor and carry those over. So this was a change from what we had planned for SFO in Portland. And, big shout out to Ian for, filming with his crew, contributing to this broadcast. Same with GK Pro, who did release next day. Yep. Although it doesn't seem like there's much of a recognition that there is next day coverage for the women.
Yeah. That's a point we're going to bring up. Keep going.
Yeah. And so the other thing, getting to the timing is, we're 2 weeks out and we decided to do this, and we had planned so Monday we're a go. We planned on Friday being the announcement day, the week before the event. Because of a few contractual, snags, basically, that we were very confident in sorting out. We worked with DD to get to the finish line, and, the one thing I would say is that on Friday, the Friday before, I really did want to announce, hey, we're working on a deal with our network broadcast partner. We won't be doing men's next day because of that. Mm-hmm. If I had known that it was going to go all the way to the next Thursday, we all probably would have put that out there. But you can imagine the reaction to that. You don't know all the details, and So the reason behind delaying the next day, that it was, Jomez's decision too, like I said, we all worked as a team. We all support each other here. But if they didn't want to do that, we wouldn't have said, hey, let's delay it. It was an opportunity that we all saw the value in, basically, and did weigh, the expectations that we thought people would have and the return of disc golf. But, I think that in this case, we can talk about kind of whether or not it was worth it in the long view. And really, for an event that wasn't on the schedule, we feel like we delivered a lot of value for our fans, especially when in the context of, all the cancellations from majors and tees throughout the year, and like this is even happening because the PDGA supported us in getting going. They said, we can't find a good way to do the NT this year, but you know what, let us get out of the way. Let us help you. Let us support you to get going. And so really like they're just as responsible for, the benefit here is anybody. And I just think it's a collaborative decision from, our group and like supported by the entire sport. And I think there are parts to celebrate, but, as we got into the next week, we just decided like when, everything was wrapped up, we would announce. And unfortunately that got to Thursday, and it did spur on a few folks that, like I said, we think are a vocal minority, but we also understand, we have compassion for those folks and like understand that, hey, this is what I was expecting. Long, hard last few months. And for a lot of people, it was clear that they care about the coverage, and that's not a bad thing. And to those folks, we say, we're sorry that you were upset by the decision, and, can totally understand why there are different perspectives out there. So, this is the way it went this time. We're happy that in 2 days from now, there's going to be post-production coverage from Central Coast, from Jomez, hitting the YouTube. So,
yeah. I mean, kudos to you guys. And like Nate was saying earlier, Steve Dodge trying to get the Pro Tour started up years ago, just people weren't working together. People weren't on the same page. Yeah, you came in and you guys all, in a very short amount of time, all grouped together on this decision and made what you guys thought was the right call. And I think what a majority of disc golfers and viewers of disc golf would think is the right call. So we kind of forgot to say this earlier, but you guys had posted the day after that you had record high live viewers, I think, with the picture of Nico. And so just
what was that number?
It was over 14,000, right?
16.
16?
Or
was it
16.8?
Okay, yeah.
16.8,
so, pretty much, first of all, congratulations on that. That's insane. And I know people are just itching to watch some disc golf, and being able to still have that final round for free on YouTube is incredible, because that's when you get, like you said, it's the final round. It's the battles. Paul and Ricky are on the same card. Calvin Heimberg on the chase card is making an incredible push, and so you got to see what Paul's going to do throughout his round. It's insane. And I think just people and all the live comments that I saw, it was all good things. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
So
all of it.
Yeah, we ran a poll in a disc golf discussion group, and we had let's just say 100 and something respond to it, and it was only like it was a small percentage. Let's say 4 or 5 people out of the 100 that said they felt upset and bothered about this. And again, that's where I kind of did my little investigation. I think it came down to the fact that they were expecting something that they didn't get. I don't think it's that they kind of turned it towards, oh, boo, CBS Sports Network, because they are missing out on something. And so they're kind of like, we got to point our fingers at something. But if it was ESPN, would it have changed their perspective? Maybe. If they were able to also watch post-production the next day and say it was on CBS Sports, maybe they'd be all applauding. So I think it's tied to the fact or the thought that they were getting something, whether it was announced or not. That was kind of what I think happened there. So
can I?
Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
Can I just say, your comments are well received by me. I agree, and it's good to hear that survey. Thank you for doing that and sharing that information. The other thing I would say is that I've seen this out there, and I would have to agree that there's a big question on whether or not this is necessarily valuable for disc golf. And I would say in terms of this event only, if we don't have anything, in the future to say, hey, this helped get that, if you just take it in a vacuum and say this event only, no, I don't know that anyone involved thought that this is like a magic bullet or like a big, breakthrough. CBS Sports has 60 million homes. It's got a streaming platform. But the streaming platform is very similar to the Disc Golf Network, right? And 60 million homes aren't necessarily going to turn it on and watch it, right? So I think the big value here is what Jomez is producing.
Yeah.
Like everything that's valuable is still like endemic to the sport, in that Jomez is using footage from all of our media partners, Disc Golf Network, Central Coast, GK Pro. They're putting something together that had a huge escalation of their production team. So it's going to be high quality. They brought in lifts to have basically a bird's eye view in a couple holes. They brought in more sound guys, a bigger production team, a bigger editing team. Really, really nice equipment that's going to like look great. And so I think everything that they're going to be able to do is the huge value here. And the fact that, they had funding to do that. And then beyond that, you put that on your reel if you're one of the media teams saying like, hey, I was involved in this production. That opens doors for those media teams if they're looking to work with network partners in the future, because they can say, hey, this CBS Sports broadcast is on my reel. It also opens doors for the tour when we're in negotiations with other networks for a different approach to a broadcast in the future. And I can tell you like already I've seen like a little progress on that front, and I'm pretty certain that this is throughout the next few years there's going to be more opportunities like this. And I think if we have to sacrifice a little on the first one, we're going to be in a better position the next time this comes around, because there are no plans necessarily to move away from the development of the internal disc golf media plan that people are responding to that they like. There's a lot of people that like live this year. There's even more people than ever that like post-produced, and those two are coexisting really beautifully. And I really see progress on both fronts. And the coexistence there and symbiosis is excellent because people have different viewing habits and we're providing options for all of them. So why move away from that? And I hear people right in the comments, and I want to say, and thank you for having me on, because I want to make this known is that we don't want to necessarily go away from that. In fact, that's what we're doing right now. We're about to do that tomorrow, and we're going to do that for the rest of the season. And we've announced that as our media plan all the way through the GMC. Now, we haven't announced what the media plan for the Tour Championship is, and if we have any progress and maybe adding a special project to that, I'd love to do it. But I would say that we want to have a little bit more sway, and a little bit more experience gets you that sway when we get to the table with a network and say, listen, this is the media plan we have. It's contractual. We're going to do it. Would you like to do something in addition? And I can't say where the conversation goes from there. You know what I mean? There may be instances where we have to give exclusivity, whether it be live or post production. But one thing I can tell you is we're going to do it as a group. We have media partners we know and trust, and we're going to work with them in doing that collaboratively in the future. So that's kind of, I just want to get that out there because I hear people when they say
we love it.
Hey, was this worth it? And I think on this scale, it's yet to be seen, but the scale is small. It's a small sample size with a very quick event, and we wanted to say, hey, any benefit that we have as a sport for being back before other live sports are back is really right in this moment. And we don't know what the benefit will be, but let's not ignore it. Let's take it and let's work on this. And, all the credit in the world to Jeremy Rusko and DD for opening that door. And, can't wait to see what Jomez does, because I think it's going to be stunning.
Yeah. Especially with all the different media outlets working together, like you're talking about. And in disc golf right now, we kind of have it the best of both worlds, where we do have live coverage and we have incredibly awesome post-round production from multiple media companies. So for change to happen so quickly in disc golf, I think that's what's, the small minority that you're talking about of people who are potentially upset of it, is change just happened so quickly to them that, like we were talking about it on our podcast, 10 minutes, or 30 minutes into the podcast, someone was like, oh, hey, by the way, did you see this post? And that's when we had learned about it. And so for all of a sudden that to happen, a minority of people are obviously going to freak out, which I'm sure you've seen in the comments and everything. But Brody had talked about on Twitter today, live coverage of anything. Like, people still have TV to watch live sports. One of the things he loves to watch is live UFC. You don't really go on YouTube and look up UFC coverage or anything like that. I don't really know 100% how it works. Like, you look up highlights and stuff, but you don't get what disc golf gives you with post-round production with almost any other sport. And so, like you said, I'm curious and I'm super kind of like ready to see what Jomez comes out with all of this, because they're all so incredibly talented. Jomez, Central Coast, GK Pro, all of them. And to be able to work together is, it's huge.
Yeah, for sure. So that brings me over. You mentioned a few things about coming together, production, all that. Like, my understanding is like they've got radar, like speed guns. They had a whole bunch, like you said, I saw microphones out in front of the T-pad. They're doing this right. And I don't think, this is what I keep going back to. I don't think there's a disc golfer out there that's upset about what's coming. I think they felt like something got taken away, and this is a different thing. But can I ask this question? Who called Paul? Was that Rusko? Because apparently Paul, and I heard this in his, I think it was in his interview right following his win, was like, I wasn't planning to come out here, but there was a great opportunity with CBS Network. Like, do you know Nick or do you know Jeff?
No.
Like, someone called him and spilled the beans.
Yeah. We wanted to make sure that the field had, a number of players. There's a couple people that weren't on the list that are, really top echelon folks. And we contacted several of them. So yeah, I think the DGPT reached out through
Nice.
a couple sources, I would say.
No, that's great.
But it wasn't just Paul. I think I think anybody in any competitor that's in the field can probably recognize that it would be important for the best athletes that we have in our game. Paul being one of the best and pretty much widely recognized as the GOAT right now.
You must have
other than
lost
the
my
Climo
number,
debate,
Jeff.
which is an interesting one that's going on, kind of like Jordan LeBron right now, right?
Yeah.
And I think that it's like I reached out to a couple other folks too, that I thought should be there. And so we just didn't want anyone who is normally up there that you see touring to say, oh, I would have came if I knew,
Yes.
And so that's where you gotta inform people of that. And yeah, definitely the DGPT hit up Paul a couple times in a couple ways.
No, that's good. And
Nice.
I agree. I actually agree and support that. I think had you guys not done that, it would have been kind of like, who dropped the ball there? Because like, this is a great opportunity. So you can't win always. And I think you just did here. I think this is a full win. I just had to ask the question because Paul decided to say he wasn't coming unless he was notified of this opportunity, which he was. So that's awesome. And then in a second to that was Paul, being invited, but the course, obviously, was this a course selection? Why couldn't this have been like, hey, let's wait until an event where maybe it's not going, and I know you can't predict the weather. It could have been rainy, like for all we know, but the wind might have a different perspective, or the whole idea of, ball golf courses and disc golf. There's a debate out there about like which looks best, which is most like our sport. Is Maple Hill, is Brewster Ridge, or is it more like golf course? And like, so this is my opinion, and maybe you have further insight. Jeremy Rusko had some form of a contact locally with CBS Sports. And so it only makes sense that it would be his course or not his course, but his event, if you will, that was highlighted. Is that how you understand it too? It's not like it wasn't the Disc Golf Pro Tour that was making this deal and said, oh, hurry, we got to have this event. Is that correct?
No, yeah. And I mean, that's how we tried to, communicate it transparently in the press release too. It was that Jeremy had a contact at CBS Sports and he had the discussion and they saw the opportunity and came to us and said, hey, you guys think that we can try to get something like this together for this event? And, like I said, after discussion with Jomez and Jomez discussion with DD, it all, kind of felt like this was the right call. So we said, yeah, let's do it. But yeah, I mean, absolutely, it was for the DD Open. That's what was pitched to CBS is like, this is the return of disc golf this year after COVID. And like, let's put this one on, try to get it on the air before, we get into the heat of maybe what hopefully is a return to more sports in the late summer and early fall. So yeah, no, it was very specifically for the DD Open. In terms of course selection, they had talked about Jones Gold, which was planned for the GBO this year, the debut of Jones Gold, and the pros are going to play Jones Gold in Emporia Country Club. And, that was something that we did talk about a little bit more collaboratively. And Doug Bierkes, who is, one of the best TDs in the world for disc golf, was in discussion with myself and actually Todd, our owner, and Jeremy. And basically, what it came down to is that, one course is really what we like for the most part. There are a couple couple courses on tour or venues on tour that have 2 courses or more that work. But really going forward, the vision is 1 course. And, I think that translates to traditional golf, like much cleaner and easier.
Yeah.
In fact, like the discussion with CBS was really focused on transferring the golfer, the golf fan, the traditional golf fan into disc golf. They want to take their audience of golf fans and say, hey, look at this sport, especially to folks that maybe haven't really seen or known about disc golf. And this is really set up to be an introduction. And, I don't know, and we don't know, so I'm not promising this, but the idea in terms of the scheduling is that there's a golf broadcast on before, and it leads into disc golf. And so you have a traditional golf fan that's there, and they're saying, okay, I just finished watching this PGA event on CBS Sports. What's next? Oh, it trickles in, and it's like, oh, hi, welcome. This is the Dynamic Disc Open. It's a disc golf event. Here's what disc golf is. Let's get into the action, And so I would expect a little bit of that. There's going to, for the disc golf fan, there's going to be like those explainers for non-fans. But even in traditional, I'm a big, golf fan. My favorite event is the Masters. I watch that every year. Watched it since I was a kid. I watch the majors. I keep up with golf. And, I think that as a fan of that, there's a lot of ways that you can ease somebody into disc golf. And that like hundreds of thousands of people have started playing disc golf because they like it, that were golfers or still are golfers as well. Because when it comes down to it, it's both of them are the game of golf. One with a stick and a club and a ball, and one with the discs. And so, I think that hopefully, I think Jomez is going to have that translation really, really nice. And then even on traditional golf broadcasts, what I was, meaning to get to here is that they do have explainers. Like they say, here's a tip on how to hit it out of the sand, or they try to explain a rule, and they have like those little vignettes, those little segments that they put in. That instead of a commercial, they'll cut to an expert on reading a green, and that's kind of some of the stuff that we're aiming for with the Disc Golf Network to add to our live broadcast.
That's awesome.
But I think that for this broadcast on CBS Sports, it's going to be more like Germ and Nate, good representatives, great representatives for our sport, saying like, hey, we're disc golfers. We're also going to be the commentators on this, and let's teach you a little bit about disc golf. And that's just going to help that transition. So in terms of like the benefits, we talked about that before. One of them is certainly that we hope that the broadcast is on after a professional, PGA event, and then it eases in.
Devil's advocate.
I think that those details are yet to be finalized too. So
leave it to me for devil's advocate. But I heard this point brought up this week about the idea of it starting up after a golf event. And I thought to myself, if I'm a golfer and I look at this, I'm going to kind of think it's corny because it's like it's not golf. It's like they're playing it, and I'm just going to compare something, and maybe it's totally different, irrelevant, but like foot golf, right? When I look at foot golf on a golf course, it just looks like I'm a competitive person, and so I'm sure I'd love the sport. So no bashing the sport, but like seeing it on a golf course, it just feels kind of like they're second to golf in the sense that it's just something else you can do on a course. And I don't want that to be disc golf either. I'd rather it almost be in its own venue. Like I said, like a Maple Hill or a Brewster or even a Fox Run, like it's its own venue. And obviously there is something to be said about that. And so I guess devil's advocate, hoping for the best. I really do believe that it is going to be set up for the best success. I do think the golfer can find it interesting and will probably stick around more. The new market is what I've been trying to comment to most people about who are making comments negative, is like, it's a new market. If we just continually market disc golfers, it's not going to grow, especially to the sponsor out there who's more interested in a larger market, not just the disc golf market. And so I think this resume, as you said earlier, will be a big deal.
But let me just say, like, hey, that's a good point. Like, I definitely hear you on that. And, I don't know if that's right or not. This course is the one that, like you mentioned, what was it that drove that course? It was that this is the opportunity and this is the moment. So you take what you're given. If I was going to pick one course in my mind,
Fox Run,
beautiful to do Milo. Yes, I'm not going to be a homer though. Like I'm going to say like, Milo and Yarva. Yarva would be so beautiful. And I think, Yarva has been featured And you know, hey, one thing I want to give a quick shout out to is that when we put out the most, you know, live viewers ever, we did put a little asterisk there to say, hey, live stream, because I know that talking to UC, and he reminded us, but there were 250,000 live viewers of the European Open one year when it was broadcast on Finnish national television.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you think about that, that's something like probably like PBS or you know, BBC or something, you know, for Finland.
Yeah.
And if it's on that, you know, obviously there's a ton of viewers. I know, like, for instance, the Outside TV broadcast that we put together for 2018 Worlds was seen by about 450,000 folks by their internal numbers with Outside TV. But that obviously was a post-production thing. And the CBS Sports thing, I would guess, like, we have a chance to, you know, have it seen by 1 million plus. And then if you look at the Jomez video of Worlds Front 9 last year, I think it's over 3 million now. So, like, there's certainly big marks out there for post videos. And then I just wanted to comment on that live video. But
what kind of
hit me up with a couple of last questions, because I gotta run.
All right. So
final prep done.
I'm trying to think of the good ones. I've got some written down here. I gotta toss one or two your way.
Well, here.
What kind of involvement did you have in the negotiations with CBS? Any, or was it all routed through Rusco?
Yeah, we all worked as a team. It was almost all routed through Rusco, but we were on the phone with CBS multiple times in production meetings, and
because you had because you had to sign off saying that live coverage could happen. That was probably something you weren't going to negotiate away, to say that no, we need to have our live coverage. And they probably said, well, it can't stay up longer than 24 hours, or like what was that? Because that was new.
I mean, I think I'm going to defer into getting too deep into the contractual details. But yeah, I mean, we did talk about, you know, what are the restrictions in place, and we asked, you know, a lot of questions about them, and we looked at the contract, and we said, okay, we understand this after a while. And you know, I don't think, like, one thing I will say, and I said this before, is I don't think that necessarily there are immovable objects in a contract. That mean, like, if we're going to be on networks in the future, it's going to be the same process. But again, you know, who knows? There's going to be, you know, hopefully several negotiations and several opportunities. So I can't say how they'll go exactly.
That's okay. Yeah. Nick had a question, I think.
Just completely, you know, going away from the coverage now, how did it feel for you and your team to be back out on the road and doing what you guys love? And then what was kind of the mindset and kind of the aura, I guess you would say, for the disc golfers being back doing what they love and doing their job?
Yeah, so it's been, you know, it's been a reasonable scramble, you know, to get back out on the road. The great part about this whole thing is that we put our vehicle and one of our media team members, Sam, in Emporia when we broke camp. You know, when we didn't know what was going on necessarily. We didn't know what was going to happen. We took about a week to consider, got up to Emporia, thought this is central. You know, we don't know where we're going to start back up. So all of our gear was right there. So all we had to do was come back out and meet Sam there. And he was able to get a lot of beautiful shots, walkthroughs, stills of the area and of the course. So that was a benefit. So it wasn't too much of a scramble. And I felt like, you know, obviously, I think that this was the best live production we've ever done.
I'm glad you said that. And I'm not going to make you, and I'm cutting you off, and I know it's a horrible host thing to do, but I'm not going to make you brag on your own live coverage. I love media. I love media, and I'm really analytical. I'm the worst with even myself, okay? So, like, I already know all the things that aren't good with our show, and I watch your show with a critical eye, your live broadcast, and I was telling people, I'm like, this coverage has come leaps and bounds and is actually enjoyable to watch with incredible things. You can tell professionals are working hard to continually fine-tune things, everything from in between shots, noticing like there's a static shot with a graphic that comes up of like the flag blowing with the graphic, or like people now there weren't spectators, but somebody outside of the fenced area at the country club were just like leaning on the fence, like they were in a shot while graphics come up. The point is, I didn't notice really. Am I missing something? Did I notice ads, or did you guys just do ads so well that I don't remember them? I guess that'd be negative for sponsors.
We played our full
Man.
ad run. So,
you guys are doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they were like, I think, really well positioned.
Yeah.
Yes.
Credit JVD and Mo. And like one of the big changes is that we added people into the production studio. So,
Nice.
we had a different cameraman and put Mahmood into the booth with JVD. And that was a huge win.
Nice.
And like big shout out to those two. Commentary team was out. I mean, like, so this is in the context of you asking, like, us getting back on the road. So, it was a scramble, but I would say that, like, we were prepared. We were planning. We were active. You saw us do the VPI in the second off season. And we felt like pretty proud about pulling that off too, because that was difficult. Like I was hurting like 50 pros for a month, trying to get that done.
It didn't look like a scramble on the outside. And Steve Dodge actually brought that up last week. He's like, I can only imagine the scramble that's happening. He said, but the difference between when I was running it and when Jeff's running it is the scramble's not public. So good job to you. You guys are doing excellent things over there. I am proud to call you a friend. The fact that when I reached out to you, you got back to me, that says a tremendous amount to me. Thank you for coming on our show. Yeah. We're very supportive of what you're doing. I'll play devil's advocate, and I hope you don't mind that, but like, we really appreciate what you're doing. By the way, not contestant. We're going to call you contestant. You have the best video quality, lighting quality that we've had of anybody on here, and internet. I know you were kind of concerned. It is like the best.
There's no delay when you speak. So
it's
that's great.
Like we're definitely trimming this section down and sharing it. And people are going to think our show is amazing because of you and your camera. So thank you.
All right, awesome.
Jeff's
hey, big shout out to Catch Cam Sam for helping me set up. So.
Awesome, thanks, Sam. So I know Sam, so good shout out to you, Sam. All right, thank you. Get out of here, and maybe you missed your dinner because of us. We appreciate it. Have a great evening. Thanks for coming on.
Good luck this weekend too.
Yeah, watch the Preserve Championship.
Yes.
It's going to be live all week on the Disc Golf Network.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Jeff.
All right, thanks.
All right,
guys.
bye.
Bye.